Cool. So now we're almost ready to talk about the staging area, and I would really like to stress not what we just did, but what we actually have now. If you look at this, it pretty much feels as if we're hadn't started to work on main 2 weeks ago, and as if we hadn't, done like millions of changes. It looks like we literally just cloned the repo. We are on main, we created a branch called topic 2, and we did all of our changes like right now, but we haven't created even a single commit. This is a lot of power, right? So we could have been working for like 2 weeks, and now we made sure that everything looks like as if we're starting to work right now, but we already have all of our changes. We just need to use the staging area wisely to decide how exactly we want to tell the story. Now, usually the staging area is explained in the very, very beginning of a Git tutorial, but I really, really wanted to teach you the reset command first, because the reset command brings you back to pretty much the beginning, right? And now you can learn about the staging area and decide how you can tell the story. Now your workflow might be different. You might not like all of these rebases and resets. You might be very, very granular. You might make your teeny tiny changes in the beginning and then, slowly and carefully commit them one by one and tell the right story from the very beginning. But my mind doesn't work like this. My workflow doesn't work like this. I'm a bit more messy. I don't want to be bothered with Git. I just wanted to like save the stuff and not lose it, that's all. And later I can decide how I want to tell the story. But you do you. By the way, we're not done talking about the interactive rebases. We're just taking a tiny detour into the staging area. And in fact, there will be a bunch of detours within the detour, so it's sort of like Inception. Let me create a bit more space. All right, now what is the staging area, or the so-called index? You can think of it as an entire world that lives between your head pointer, which is basically your last commit, and your next commit, right? So it's essentially this weird space between your current, where you're currently at, and your next commit. Now let me clear the screen over here and do GD. Now remember in the beginning I actually told you that, when you're looking at changes in VS Code, then the changes are either red or green, but the file in the sidebar sometimes is marked as yellow. And I told you that Git actually doesn't do this in its output. So over here we're looking at the diff, and it's the same as in VS Code as green or red, but it never marks like the files like in yellow. There is no yellow. Now if you do GST, it actually also has colors, and the colors actually mean something slightly different. Red means that there's a difference between your working copy and the staging area, and green means that there is a difference between your staging area and the head, which basically means the changes that are about to be committed. Okay, so if you do GAA, it's going to become green, right? So GST is going to become green because now this is the changes that are going to be committed. So this is the difference between the staging area and your head. Now behind the scenes, the index is actually stored in a file called index. So I just added the changes. Okay, so we did the status. Okay, we're going to do the diff. There's nothing in the diff, but we can actually do GDS, right, which is git diff stage, and now we're actually going to see it. Okay, so now if I'm going to show you the file called index, it's a binary file. Okay, so a bat is not going to show it to you, right? But if we do this, we're actually going to see something in there, and you see there's something file tree, there's some weird stuff. Cat is trying to figure out how to render a binary file. Okay, so what we're going to do now is we're actually going to remove it, right, like this. Like technically, like most of the times when you're removing the index, you're not going to lose anything that you couldn't recover. You lose like a little bit of work, but you're actually not losing your changes. You're just losing, what you already added to the index. Every time you add something to the index, it's sort of like creating a commit that is somewhat special, like an invisible commit. It's like you're committing to some very special area, but it's essentially gone, which is why when we did GD over here, we didn't actually see anything. Okay, so we remove the index. Now I'm going to add everything again. I'm going to do GST again. I'm going to do GD again. I'm going to do GDS again. Okay, so we recreated everything, right? We recreated the entire index. Now, so far in this entire series, we never made use of the staging area. We simply ignored it or skipped it. In fact, many version control systems don't even have a staging area, right? So what we did all is we just dumped everything, right? And we said everything is going to be part of the next commit. Okay, but now we're actually going to start granularly decide what we want to have there, right? Because over here, we gripped a bunch of times, like 10 times, right? We have a bunch of changes. They're mixed with everything, whatever, right? So now we're going to use the staging area to selectively choose which changes we want. And for this, we need a bigger boat with lots of changes. And also, I want to show you a real workflow where you're doing git push force to some remote branch, and also where you're rebasing not on top of main, but on top of origin main, which is more common. So let me start closing this stuff over here like this and like that. And like this, let's actually increase the font a little bit. Okay, we're also going to get out of here. Okay, so now we're over here in this interactive rebase playground. Now, a couple of years ago, I created a very cool beginner-friendly Scala project that renders the current time in a pretty way. So we're gonna go over here. And I also already have it open. It's called 7-segment display clock, and I created a GIF or a GIF, whatever you prefer, and it basically runs it like this and displays it basically uses pipes and hyphens to display the clock. So what we're going to do now is we're going to steal it. So I'm going to go over here and I'm going to copy this. Okay, so I'm going to go over here and show you this GCL alias, which is git clone. You can ignore the recurse submodules. Okay, so we can do GCL and then we can just paste this thing in. Okay, so now it clones it into a 7-segment display clock. Okay, so if we go in there, we're actually going to remove the .git directory. I'm sorry, cd7 tab. Okay, so we're going to remove recurse and force the .git directory, right? So we're totally stealing it, right? So now it just became a regular directory, a regular project. Okay, so we're going to start from the beginning. We're just going to do git init, and we're going to just add everything, and we're going to say that this is going to be our initial commit. Okay, so our graph looks like this. So we just dumped everything in there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to copy this like this, and we're going to go to GitHub, and we're going to go not to dev inside you, but we're going to go to git from 0 to hero. We're going to recreate it like this, new, and we're going to do this. That's going to be private, no files. Just going to create the repository like this. Okay, so now I'm going to go over here and I'm going to press up a couple of times, which is this. Okay, so all I need to do is I need to change this to GRA and origin, right? So git remote add origin, and now over here instead of dev inside you, I'm simply going to say git from 0 to hero like this. Okay, so this is going to be our origin. Okay, what was it, grv? There we go. So now all I need to do is I need to push this main branch, gp sup git push set upstream main, use the same name for the remote branch as for the local branch. So we're going to do this now. So now we're going to have this red pointer. We're going to go over here, we're going to reload the page, and it's going to look very stolen. Now this is a Scala project and most of you guys are not Scala developers. I'm not going to teach you any Scala over here, but we do need to set up some stuff for Scala. It's going to take just a couple of seconds because these days it's actually super easy to do. I have a script that sets up an entire Scala environment, and it's going to take a couple of minutes, but I'm obviously going to cut it out from the video. So I'm just going to go over here, click over here, copy these 2 lines, go over here, paste them over here, press enter, and now it starts to do a bunch of stuff. It starts to to download the GraalVM, it starts to install the JVM. It's going to install all the tools that we need. I'm going to speed this up in post, or maybe even cut it out, so it should take just a couple of seconds for you. All right, it took only a couple of minutes, so let me get out and go back in. All right, so now all I need to do is I need to do SBT run, and the first time you run SBT, which is a Scala build tool, by the way, in case you're not a Scala developer, the first time you run it, it's going to take a couple of minutes, so I'm going to cut it out as well. I'm actually noticing that I did not switch the directory in there, so it actually downloads the latest version of SBT, which is not a problem. I'm going to let it finish because we're actually going to, one of the changes that we're going to do to our project, it will actually be to update SBT to its latest version, and so we're going to end up needing to download it anyway, so I'm gonna let it finish, and for you it doesn't really matter because I'm gonna cut it out. We can go into dev interactive rebase playground and 7-segment clock, and we can do SBT run over here, and now it's gonna start downloading the older version of SBT, and again I'm gonna cut it out. Alright, so it finished, and there are 2 main methods. One is, as the name says, tick for a few seconds, and the other one, tick until enter is pressed. So let's tick for a few seconds first. There we go. Very pretty, I know. All right, let's do SBT run again, and this time we're gonna choose the other one. Tick until enter is pressed. There we go. So it just renders it like this. There are some rendering issues because I'm using Windows Terminal. As you can see, like this pipe was jumping around. Also, you see this flickering. A bit later, I'm going to show you how to run it in the terminal of VS Code, and over there will be no flickering. It uses some fancy ANSI codes to to clear the screen. And we're going to make a couple of changes to this. Some changes are going to be an improvement to the rendering. There are some fancy box drawing Unicode characters that we're going to use, and also we're going to make some changes to the build tool. Now, obviously, I already prepared all the changes, so I'm not going to waste your time. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm gonna press enter, and we have like nothing in there. Okay, so I'm gonna create a topic branch like this. Okay, and so I'm gonna do I'm actually gonna go and show you. I'm going to show you a folder called changes. Okay, so this is the folder that looks pretty much exactly like the current folder looks like. It just that the only difference is that this one has a Git directory and this one does not. So all I need to do is I need just to copy it over, and then Git will diff them for me. Okay. So I'm going to copy recursively changes, and I need to make sure that I'm not using the star. I'm going to use a dot so that dot files are also copied over, and I'm going to put them into here. Changes like this. Okay, so it copied a bunch of changes over. So if we do GD, we're actually seeing a bunch of these changes over here, right? So as you can see, I use some fancy characters like this. Right, and this change looks a bit weird. I updated the Scala version, and there was like a deprecation version to that forced me to update this. I made some changes to the build file. I changed the version of SPT as I mentioned before. I added some compiler flags. If you're not a Scala developer, this is not the point, right? The point is that I made a bunch of changes. Some of them were clearly for my ticket, and the other ones were simply updates or refactorings. Okay, and I also somewhere added a completely new file. I changed the git ignore, by the way. I also added a new file to show you how, because we're going to run into some issues with new files. In fact, I didn't see it before. Let me actually double check that it is there. Yeah, this one, new file. Okay, so if we do GD, I'm sorry, GST, then we're going to see that new file is untracked. This is also going to become a bit relevant. Okay, so let's run it first to see that that everything works fine. So we already have the the version 1.4.6. Downloading some dependencies. It should take only a couple of seconds. All right, so let's stick until enter is pressed, and as you can see, it's much prettier now, right? We still have the flickering, but that's a terminal issue. This is not the not the code issue. All right, so let's press enter. Let's actually go and pretend like these were a lot of changes, so I GWIPed a bunch of times, but because this is not exactly what happened, we're gonna GWIP only once. Okay, GWIP. All of these things are now in there. This is how our log looks like. Now let's also push this branch, okay? And also let's pretend like somebody else already did some change and already merged something into master, okay? So let's do like this, all right? In fact, should we do? Yeah, we probably should do the other thing as well. Yeah, let's do the other thing as well. So let's do like this and like that, and cd into def interactive 7, and let's do glog a, maybe like this, glog a and glog a w, glog a w like this. Let me press enter over here. There we go. Okay, so this is our graph. Okay, so again, let's say that somebody already went in there and over here. Okay, let's say somebody went and edited one of the files. So, for example, they went to README and changed the 7 to 7. Okay, there's also this is the first time that I'm showing this to you, right? But there's also a way to make your changes while directly on GitHub. Okay, so let's do this. Update README. Commit directly to the main branch, right? So that's I'm mimicking that somebody created a topic branch, created a PR. Somehow the whole thing got merged into main. Okay, let's actually zoom out a little bit. It's somehow too much. All right, now the time has come for our very first alias, and I prefer to keep my aliases in a separate file, and I'm sort of used to keeping them in the file called .bash_aliases. So first we're going to go into ZSHRC. So I'm going to go into ZSHRC like this, and I'm going to go down, and I'm going to paste something. Which looks a bit weird. Hold on, like this. Okay, so basically it says if this file exists, then please source it. Okay, like this. Let's go back out, and I probably need to close this one and go back in and go into dev interactive rebase playground, whatever. Okay, now what we're gonna do is I'm actually going to go and open this file with Visual Studio Code, usually I would open it with Vim, but because usually I would run this whole thing in Tmux, and because this is a VM that I set up specifically for this playlist. I don't have like all the tools, and so I need something to, because we're gonna keep adding aliases, and so I need to the ability to go there quickly and come back. Okay, so I'm going to open bash aliases, which doesn't even exist. Okay, hold on. Touch bash aliases like this, and let's open it with. Well, actually, first let's open the current directory in Visual Studio Code. Okay, and now maybe we can actually entirely switch to. Yeah, let's actually entirely switch to this terminal over here. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to open bash aliases in Visual Studio Code. Okay, so just going to open it over here. Now I obviously have all of these aliases, so before I'm actually going to add them, I'm gonna show you where my dot files are so that you can find them, so that you don't have to like type all of this stuff up. So if you just go to github.com /agilesteel /dot and then dot files. Right, so AgileSteel is my my private account, and if you press T, then you can actually search for files, and so you can search for bash aliases, and there it is. Just press enter. There we go. So I have a bunch of aliases. These ones are for Git and GitHub. Just note that they're always changing because I always keep improving the developer inside. Okay, so the alias that we're going to add is actually going to be two. It's going to be GRBOM. Okay, so it's going to be a git rebase origin master. Okay, so we're going to do GFA and GRB origin slash, and this part is going to work only for ZSH. I mean, the whole thing is only going to work for ZSH because we're using all of these aliases. Okay, so ZSH, the Git plugin brings us this function, git main branch. Okay, so we're going to copy it as well, and I'm going to also have the interactive version of this as well that we're going to use a bit later. Okay, like this. All right, so now we need to close this guy, and we need to open the terminal again so that I can ask, hey, do we actually have this one? Yes, we do. Do we have this one? Yes, we do. And also we have this one that comes from the plugin itself. Okay, so this one exists, but the ones for origin, they actually don't exist. Okay, so maybe actually we can set this thing up over here. No, not like this. Hold on, like this. Okay, can we do this thing here? Glog a W like this. Okay, perfect. All right, so we need more space like this. By the way, notice that we didn't actually fetch, but we're seeing that origin main move forward, and it's because I forgot that I have this plugin over here for VS Code that fetches from time to time. Maybe it's even built into VS Code. It basically just fetches all the time. I really don't remember how it's called. I'm sorry. Okay, right. So let's do that. Let's press enter over here. Let's give it a little bit more space, like this. Okay, so we're over here. There are some changes to main, and so we want to do GRBOM, right? And this is going to be pretty much the first time where we're not going to run into any issues with merge conflicts. Right? We're not going to have any merge conflicts, right? So we're just going to say to do this, which is something that you would do all the time, and there we go. It just did it. Okay. We're also seeing like these two arrows now because whatever we pushed before on our topic branch, right? So the basically the origin topic now diverges from the regular topic. Okay, so which means that if we try to push now, right, GP, it will tell us that we can't do this. Okay, it says failed to push some refs. Updates were rejected because the tip of your current branch is behind its remote counterpart. Okay, so it basically says, hey, like on GitHub, like the upper arrow says there is something already, and no, I'm sorry, the other way around. This would be the bottom one, right? So the bottom one says, hey, there's already something on GitHub, right? So the origin topic is like more forward, and we are currently behind. So if we were to push, it would create this fork, and this is not what we want. Now, as already mentioned, in this particular case, we want this, right? So we're doing like this regular workflow, right? So somebody changed, and you just keep your branch up to date, right? So you do GRBOM all the time, and then eventually you're going to force a push, and now it's going to be pushed. There we go. Okay, let's actually go here as well and let's see it. So if you refresh, no, not this one. Let's close this one. This one, we're going to click on two branches, click on yours, click on topic, and maybe we actually need to open the pull request. Like at some point, you're going to open the pull request. Maybe let's not open the pull request just yet. All right, in any case, we have two problems now. First of all, our commit message is horrible. And second of all, we have a bunch of changes squished together into this one commit. So we need to do something about it, okay? And also, this brings me to a very, very common scenario. Like very often, you want to change your last commit. Which is which is something that you could do as an interactive rebase. But this is a very, very common scenario because sometimes it happens all the time that you forget to add a file, or you made a typo in the commit message, and so instead of doing like a rebase or resets or something, Git already comes with a command called amend. But because it's a tutorial, we're gonna do it by hand first. So let's say that we say forgot to add this file. I'm going to pipe it into some file, right? So we're basically creating a new file, and we're saying that, hey, we just forgot to add it. We're going to add it. So if we hover over here, it's going to say that it's added, index added, right? At the end over here, it says index added, right? And so what we're going to do is, commit amending, and we're going to do it by hand, is going to basically do a soft reset to one parent. Soft reset means that it will not lose our changes and it will not lose the changes to the index. And so because we just staged this change, it's going to get merged with the index from before. Okay, so if I do GST now, it's going to say this is what we have. And if we do GRH and we're going to do soft and we're going to go back once, right? Go back to the parent. Okay, and we're going to do GST. It's going to look like we did the whole thing, and our new file, which is some file, is also there, right? So they're already staged, right? Because we did the soft, the index survived the reset, so to say. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to do a git commit, and we're going to use a flag called C. Now, C, what it will do is it will commit with the message from some other commit, right? And the some other commit is going to be the origin head, right? It's remember, every time you do a reset, there is there is this pointer origin head. Okay. Now, if you use the small c, it will actually open the editor for you, and it will just fill in the message, and then you can change it. But in our particular case, I don't want to change it. I want to keep it as work in progress. So I'm just going to do this, and as you can see, like what will happen now is that this SHA will change, and effectively we just added a new a new change. Now, because again, we're diverging, right? It's a rewrite, right? It's a completely new thing. Like this thing happened. Okay. Now, usually you would force again, you would force a push, but because this is a demonstration, I actually wanna reset again, so that we can do it so that we can do it again. Okay, so I could do something like grhh, and I would find that commit that was there before. I would look into the ref log, but in this particular case, it's also such a very, very common scenario, and so there is another alias. Okay, so again, let's recap. There is grh, which is get reset. There is grhh, okay, which is reset hard, but there is also groh, to the origin, right? Because this is a very common scenario. Remember, like this is that thing that your colleague would do if he accidentally pulls your branch, then you rebase it. Okay, then he would probably do this, right? Groh, right? So it says git reset origin to the git current branch and hard. Okay, so it's essentially it will reset it to this. So it's before I added this some file. Now I'm actually going to run it real quick. Okay, so it just went away. This some file just disappeared. But I actually want to show you a better version of writing this guy. Okay, so we're going to go here, and I'm going to write it as grhh, and I'm going to say add upstream, just like this, add upstream. Okay, so if we do gref parse short equals 7, and we're going to do add u. Okay, then we're going to see that this is exactly this guy. Okay, so wherever branch you're on, at u gives you gives you its origin, unless assuming that you have only one, right? Because like in a very complicated scenario, you could actually have multiple remotes set up and stuff. So I'm actually going to save it so we can use it the next time. In fact, I probably need to do this and this. Okay, So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to do that, and I'm going to log a w. Okay, because every time you change in your aliases, you need to actually reload your shell or just source your bash aliases. Maybe I'm going to do this from now on. I'm gonna source them now. Okay, so let's do this echo thing again. Forgot to add this file. Okay, we're going to do add. Okay, and now we're not going to use a rebase or reset. We're going to use amending. Okay, so what we did before was amend, and this is the thing that the error that I'm doing all the time. Commit has 2 amps, amend has only 1. Please make sure to do this. Okay. Now, if you do this, it's going to pretty much do the same thing as we just did manually, but it will also open your editor to change the message. But if you don't want to change the message, then you can just do no edit like this, right? And it's going to do exactly the same thing as we did before. Okay, so let's graw, and this time we're running graw with this guy. Okay, let's do this echo thing again. Let's do GAA. This time we're going to do commit amend. Okay, and this time without the no edit, right? So it's going to pop up our editor. We have the ability to change the message. I'm not going to do it, so we're just going to do this. Okay, there we go. Let's do graw again. Let's also give it a bit more space like this. There we go. Cool. So now we can start finally talking about the staging area properly. And there's this thing in Git that bothers me a lot. It tracks new files different from the regular changes. You always have to say, okay, you have to ask the staging area to track the new files. And so I'm going to show you a couple of aliases that I actually usually overwrite. Like if you look at my bash aliases, they're always overwritten. And basically they're overwritten in such a way that they track new files as if they should be added automatically. Now this requires some discipline, right? So basically I treat my my projects like a temple. I make sure that my git ignore is up to date, my global git ignore, that everything is clean. And also I'm making sure that if I have some tool that generates some stuff, I make sure that it's in git ignore. Basically I make sure that every file that I add is actually something that I want to eventually commit. So I never allow some garbage to lay around. Okay, so let me show you these aliases. So the first one is GCA, right, for git commit amend. Okay, so it basically does git commit amend, does it verbose, and it also says all. This -a, it does all, but again, it doesn't keep track of the untracked files. So if we do alias gcan, right, was the N stands for no added, but apart from that, it's exactly the same thing. Okay, now for this exactly the same reason, I never showed you this alias. This alias gcam for git commit at all and then specify the message it has this A flag. All of them have this A flag, which means that if you just changes the file, changing the files that are already tracked, it's gonna grab them. But if you have untracked files, it's not. And I really dislike it. So I usually go and I change all of them. Okay, so this is exactly what we're gonna do. So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to say, every time I say gcam, I actually mean please add everything and then do git commit message. Okay, and if I'm doing GCA like this, then please do, by the way, I'm using Fiora code. So this is like the bang and then the equal sign. Okay, so we're going to have this. So in this case, I want to say add all and then do commit amend, right? Amend 1M. Okay, and if I'm doing this with N, then I want to commit amend and no edit like this. All right, let's close this guy. Let's do this. Close this guy as well, like this. All right, yeah, whatever. All right, so let's do this. Let's do that. Like this. There we go. There we go. All right, so let's do alias gcam, and we're gonna see that it has my stuff. And so now we can do the same echo like before, and now I can just do gcan and it's just gonna shove it in there without editing, and that's it, right? So I don't need to worry about the fact that that I need to track new files or some stuff. Okay, so let's do graw again. And by the way, let's also add yet another alias, which is going to be over here. It's going to be git reset to origin master. Right, so it's going to be a regular reset, not a hard reset. So we're going to do origin, and I'm used to saying master, but it's basically the git main branch.